There was a student of the New Thought Ancient Wisdom teachings who was in a workshop with me, and he asked the facilitator a question. And the question is, how do we unify our presence with God? How do we realize our oneness with this thing we call God? Well, this is a very important question. And I'll share with you what I learned and what has helped me answer that particular question. We hear in John, the 10th chapter and 30th verse, the master teacher, Jesus, saying something to the effect, I and my Father are one. And when he says Father, he's talking about the presence of God. He's referring to that God presence. And since he reminded that all of the things that I have done, you can do too, one might ask, how can we unify with God? As I thought about what it means to be one with this presence that we call God, I remember a story about a spiritual conference that took place. And the organizers of the conference wanted to begin and end the conference by reading the 23rd Psalm. You may know the Psalm. And anyway, they asked a young, excited minister, to kick off the conference by simply reading that passage. And that minister agreed. And when he read the Psalm, he was articulate. He was very fluent, and he had it completely memorized. And he said, the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. And when he finished, there was a light applause that came from the audience. And, he felt really good about himself. He thought he'd done a good job. And the conference went on. And at the end of the conference, the facilitator called upon an elder statesman to close out the event with a reading of the 23rd Psalm one more time. And the gentleman got up and he went up to the platform, and he kind of was slow, and he had to adjust his glasses to read the Bible. And he stumbled over a number of words, and as he began the psalm, he said, the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. And he spoke every word of the psalm. And as he read through the psalm, he could feel a hush go through the entire audience. People began to cry. People were healed. They released the burden of guilt, and they released the burden of doubt and worry and fear in their lives. A transformation had gone through the entire room. And at the end, the young minister went up to the elder statesman and said, I don't quite understand. When I recited the psalm, I was fluent and I was articulate. I knew it by heart. People liked it, and they gave me a nice applause. But when you did it, there was not a dry eye in the house. What was the difference? And the elder gentleman said to him, as he looked at the young man, he said, you knew the psalm, but I know the shepherd. And we ask, how can we realize our oneness with God like that man said he did as he knew the shepherd, as he knew the great law of life, as he knew the Lord, as he knew the dynamic presence? How can we have that same experience? I think to be like that elder statesman who lived in his oneness with the shepherd, what we have to do, we have to know where we are going in our prayer work. There's a story about Oliver Wendell Holmes, and he was riding on a train. And as the conductor was going up and down the aisles to get the tickets, he came to Mr. Holmes, and Mr. Holmes couldn't quite find his ticket. And he was fumbling through his bag and looking through his pockets. But of course, Oliver Wendell Holmes was the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. And, the conductor knew him. And so he simply said to him, Mr. Holmes, if you can't find your ticket, don't worry about it. All you have to do is, if you happen to find it, just send it all in. You're okay. And Mr. Holmes said to the conductor, you don't understand. I don't know where I'm going. I think in order for us to really live a life in which we realize and express our oneness with God, like that elder statesman, we have to know where we are going in our prayer work. I think far too often, we don't even know where we're going, when we're in prayer, when we're doing our prayer work. More often than not, we may move into prayer, trying to keep ourselves separate from this presence of God. We may be trying to get this presence of God to help us with our little lives or to somehow get rid of a problem, rather than coming to the awareness and understanding that our life is the life of God. That we're a dimension of God's action. We're a dimension of God's activity. We're a dimension of God's goodness. So to realize our oneness with God, we need to do one simple thing. We must become available and yield to the good that is seeking to express through and as each and every one of us every moment of our day. Well, if you found some value in this video, I invite you to like it by clicking the like button. And if you have your own comments on how we can realize our oneness with this presence we call God, please leave your comments. And remember this one thing. Each and every day, we can be transformed by the renewing of our minds and hearts.